Pakistan has consistently relied on external loans from institutions like the IMF, which it has approached 24 times since 1958, accumulating a staggering $131 billion in external debt by 2024, about 76% of GDP, with public debt exceeding $260 billion. Despite frequent changes in leadership and numerous bailout packages, including the latest $3 billion IMF extended fund facility in July 2023 after a near default when reserves hit just $3 billion, the nation finds itself in a perpetual cycle of borrowing. The question remains, why does Pakistan continue to borrow so heavily? And where does this money truly go, if not to significantly improve the lives of its over 240 million citizens amid ongoing economic struggles? To understand this, we must first grasp the basics of national debt, which, much like a household loan taken when monthly expenses exceed income, is incurred for a country when government spending outpaces revenue from taxes and other sources. For a nation like Pakistan, this debt funds essential imports of oil and food, subsidies on electricity and fuel, and critical investments in infrastructure, but it can be categorized as either good debt for productive assets or bad debt for mere consumption. Pakistan's fiscal deficit often hovers between 6 to 8% of its GDP annually, driven by a low tax-to-GDP ratio of just 10 to 12%, one of the lowest globally, meaning the government collects far less revenue relative to its economy size compared to peers. This chronic deficit stems largely from weak tax enforcement, exemptions for the massive agricultural sector, which employs 40% of the workforce, and a narrow tax base that excludes many informal sectors, severely limiting domestic revenue generation. A primary driver for borrowing is the persistent current account deficit, ranging from $4 to $20 billion annually and fueled by a heavy 70% import dependency on essentials like oil, which alone costs $15 to $20 billion yearly. Oil imports devour $15 to $20 billion each year, alongside machinery and food items, while exports, primarily low-value textiles making up 60% of shipments, stagnate at just $15 to $16 billion despite a $30 billion total in FY 2024. Low industrial productivity due to outdated machinery, chronic energy shortages with circular debt over $15 billion, and high defense spending at 3 to 4% of GDP further exacerbate these deep economic challenges. Pakistan borrows from multilateral institutions like the IMF and World Bank, which provide about 25% of loans, bilateral partners such as China for over $30 billion in CPC projects, and allies like Saudi Arabia with $5 billion in deposits. The nation often finds itself trapped in a vicious debt cycle, taking new loans just to pay off old debts and ballooning interest payments that reach $10 to $15 billion annually, consuming more than export earnings. IMF bailout conditions frequently impose tough austerity measures, forced rupee devaluation, and sharp subsidy cuts on fuel and power, which, while aimed at stabilization, can stifle economic growth to just 2 to 3% versus the 5 to 7% needed. These policies have triggered a severe rupee crash, with the exchange rate plummeting to 278 rupees per dollar in 2024 from around 100 in 2018, drastically reducing the currency's purchasing power. The direct impact on ordinary citizens has been severe, with inflation peaking at 20 to 38% in 2023, leading to soaring prices for essential goods like wheat, rice, and vegetables in daily markets. Electricity and fuel tariffs have surged by 50 to 100% in recent years, rapidly eroding household savings, pushing poverty rates to affect 40% of the population, and forcing cuts in public spending on vital sectors like health and education, which get only 2 to 3% of GDP. Ultimately, it is the common people who bear the heaviest price for these economic challenges through skyrocketing costs of living, reduced access to services, and a declining quality of life. So, what is the realistic way out of this persistent debt crisis that has plagued Pakistan for decades? One crucial step is to boost exports beyond textiles by diversifying into high-potential sectors like IT services and value-added agriculture processing, with an ambitious target of reaching $60 billion in total exports by 2030. Implementing comprehensive tax reforms is also vital, aiming to lift the tax-to-GDP ratio to 15 to 18% through digitalization of filings, better enforcement, and broadening the tax base to include more sectors and individuals. Privatization of loss-making state-owned enterprises like Pakistan International Airlines and inefficient power distribution firms can significantly reduce fiscal burdens and improve overall operational efficiency. Investing heavily in human capital through better education and targeted skills training programs is essential, especially given the current literacy rate of just 60% and the need for a skilled workforce. Successfully completing ongoing CPEC projects for better infrastructure and strictly enforcing fiscal discipline to control deficits are key to achieving long-term economic stability and sustainable growth. Success stories from neighboring countries like Bangladesh, which has surged to over $50 billion in annual exports through garment and light manufacturing booms, offer valuable models for Pakistan to emulate. Pakistan's chronic debt is not merely a financial issue, but a systemic problem deeply rooted in structural economic weaknesses like trade imbalances and low revenue collection. Understanding this intricate web of economics, from deficits to debt servicing, is the crucial first step towards devising and implementing a sustainable way out of the crisis. By boldly addressing these fundamental issues head-on, Pakistan can pave the way for a more prosperous, stable, and ultimately debt-free future for its people.